Hello. On today's episode, we'll be talking about agency specialization and how narrowing the focus of our agencies has helped them grow. Peter, going to ask you some questions. What do we mean by specialization?
We're going to be kind of using specialization and another term, positioning, a little bit interchangeably, but this is how we kind of think about it. Specialization is more about kind of the internal, like what you choose to be an expert in. And so for an agency, that could be, picking a vertical that you're going to be really, knowledgeable about. So let's say, it could be in the automotive industry, let's say fashion or whatever it might be, and kind of going deep into that. Or it could be some kind of service line. So, a capability like, let's say, branding or motion design or web design development. Or it could be something more specific like platform. So, within, let's say, website design development, it might be, hey, we're experts in building sites on Wix or, building something on WordPress. So, specialization is really about defining what you're going to master as a business. And then I say like positioning, we use interchangeably, but positioning is really about how that mastery is expressed to the public. So, you might outwardly be, talking about how, hey, we make, really great e-commerce websites for the leading fashion brands of the world. So that could be an example of positioning. So that's the way we think about specialization.
All right. Well, you shared a lot of different ways an agency can specialize. Why would you say why is specialization important or helpful?
Yeah, specialization, to kind of think about its usefulness, it's good to look at the inverse. So like, when you're a generalist agency, what are some of the things that are pros and cons of a generalist agency? So if you are providing, let's say you're a full service agency, in the marketing space, so you're able to do, all kinds of things. You can, make websites, you can do the design, but you can also, do a little bit of PR. You can do some paid advertising. You can help them with some conference events. So you do all these things, and then you might be able to do this for a dentist's office, but also do it for a financial services firm, or do this for a consumer brand. So when you think about a generalist agency and the ability to service all these clients across all these different capabilities, one thing you could argue is that that's cool. Like the people working there are going to get variety and they can be creative in different ways with all these different types of clients. But I think the trade-off might be that, hey, are they able to do it really well for that client? Are they, able to help that dentist really reach their customers and understand their problems and needs deeply versus the financial services client who might have a totally different ICP and need a different set of skills to, really engage and get the marketing done for their customers. And so I think there's going to be trade-offs. So when it comes to specialization, where it's helpful for an agency might be, it can really help to streamline and provide depth to how they can service their customers, their clients. And so, in the case, let's go back to the dentist. If you're an agency that does marketing for dentists, now you're talking about having a very clear idea of the customers that the dentists are targeting. Maybe you develop processes as well as you've got a wealth of experience going after the same kind of client, so you can pattern match and get better and better at how you deliver results. And you might have solved some hairy problems specific to that type of client that you can then help navigate much faster, and it's not a first time thing that you have to try to figure out. And so with that, and you're giving also the dentist a degree of confidence, right? Like, hey, you've done this for these other 10 other dentists, great. I feel like I could trust you more to deliver for me. And so I think that all those things provide a degree of value in how the agency is perceived by the clients, and also in the way that they can deliver services more impactfully for the client.
How about some more stories about our own agencies? If you could talk a little bit more about how our agencies are specialized and then our journey in getting there.
Yeah, so across Barrel Holdings, I mean, part of the reason we're so passionate about this topic of specialization is because we've taken a very long road to get here in terms of like, how we think about specialization. So I'll start with, Barrel first, our original agency. And, we started out pretty, we did branding, we did graphic design, we did website design development, we did some paid marketing. So we did a lot of things for different clients. And, I distinctly remember one time we had a recent launch blog post where we talked about launching a website for an investment bank and a nail salon in the same blog post. That was how kind of like um, generalists we were. Like whoever needed a website or any of our services, we go for it. And so over time, there were some, we got to work with a lot of things. I mean, it was fun because we got to work with a different kind of client all the time. But over time, we realized like we could be more successful if we narrowed our focus more. And one of the things that we ended up uh, really pinning on was around kind of the e-commerce side from a capabilities perspective. We latch onto the Shopify ecosystem. We thought, hey, e-commerce is growing at this amazing clip. Shopify is the platform that we want to be the best at, and we started to hone in more and more within that space. Now, that space got competitive really quickly. There was a time where like, yeah, we were winning a lot and just it was easy to get deals, but then over time, a lot of entrants came in, and so it wasn't enough to just be Shopify experts and be specialized in that way. So we added another layer, and this was thankfully we had experience working with a lot of CPG, especially in the food and bev category, and so just combining the two of commerce and CPG, that focus has been really great for Barrel in that we are in many respects like a go-to agency if you're a food and beverage brand trying to leverage Shopify and reach customers that way. Like we have a wealth of knowledge in that space. We know how to think about omni-channel. We know how to think about not just the e-commerce direct to consumer, but also the retention marketing aspect of it, the SEO side of it, the content side of it with things like recipes and store locators. And so all those things have given us this specialized positioning that we can go and market to potential clients.
Amazing. And maybe we can share some of the other stories, but I'm curious, if you do specialize, does that mean you can't take on other work outside of that specialization?
Yeah, and this is kind of where there's some degree of decision making that has to be done, in terms of how seriously you're taking specialization. But then there's also the reality of like running a business, a small business, especially of like, hey, some of these opportunities we need, the dollars are very important, and it's going to help us give that runway so that we can specialize further. So an example is as just kind of going back to Barrel, let's say, as we kind of specialize in that CPG, food and bev, especially, and commerce, we're still, getting opportunities to bid on things like, fashion, apparel, or, maybe some other kind of electronic equipment, et cetera, where it's still e-commerce. So there's a degree of like, we can use expertise for it, but then it's not quite that CPG food and bev vertical category that we're going after. And, I think it's a case by case, assessment of like, hey, this opportunity we can pass up and, leaves us the opportunity to pursue a CPG food and bev client, then we'll say no. But if it's an opportunity where maybe, hey, like for financial reasons and also just the relationship aspects of it, we should think about taking it on. Then yeah, you can still take that client on, but remain committed on the external positioning side to that CPG food and bev commerce focus, and still send that signal that, hey, this is what we prefer. So send us those kinds of deals. But, on the back end, you might still take on things that are not a perfect fit.
How about for agencies that might be early on in this journey or are currently kind of more of a generalized agency? How would you go about thinking about moving towards specialization? And yeah, and what are some kind of tips you have there?
Yeah. I mean, this is where, and I think we're seeing this. Another kind of specialized agency in our portfolio is BX Studio, our Webflow agency. And right now they're very much like just specialized on that Webflow side of things of like, hey, we build websites on Webflow. But within that, they have a lot of different types of clients that just we've done these websites for. And I think one way to think about it, so you could argue they're specialized, but they're still generalists to a certain degree, right? And I think one way to kind of move more towards the specialization spectrum would be to identify clusters, especially on the vertical side of, hey, we tend to service a certain type of client that need Webflow websites, and maybe we can lean in a bit deeper and find ways that we could be more more useful to the more expert in how we provide our services to them. So an example might be hospitality. So like that's one where BX has done dozens of sites for hospitality clients that might be hotels, restaurants, just real estate developers that are kind of doing these hospitality projects. And we've learned a lot from those. There's certain kinds of things. There's different booking engines that might be integrated. There might be certain kinds of marketing features on the websites. Certain content management considerations. And so if we do a better job of like really codifying that, and also kind of showing and proving out to these types of clients why we're experts in that for that vertical, then there's a case to be made. Maybe it starts with a landing page of like, hey, these are all the things that we can do for hospitality companies, and this is why we're the clear choice if you're looking for a website, and then going to market with that, and then really driving the positioning and kind of the demand for those kinds of services. That's one way to kind of deepen that specialization. So I think any company, there's bound to be like clusters where like you've kind of done something more than once, and then from there kind of understanding how you can go deeper and then building out the expertise.
From kind of our position at Barrel Holdings, really with our goal of building a portfolio of specialized agencies, uh, you know, why would you say it's important for us to go down this path versus just agencies in general? And then maybe you can touch a little bit on valuations and how specialization impacts valuations.
Yeah. Well, I think our thesis for Barrel Holdings is that especially at the size of the agencies we're going after, and I think like I mean, this is not to say general agencies can succeed, but I think it's our opinion that general agencies succeed because they get to a certain degree of scale, and then within that, like they're able to kind of touch upon different things that are important to different clients, which a lot of times is the scale is very important to them. Like, hey, you're working with X number of clients, you have X number of headcount, and those things become more important in winning deals for the areas that we play in. So these agencies that are kind of in that 2 to 6, under $10 million in revenue, annual revenue, we think specialization offers a degree of durability and profitability that kind of drive the value, and also we're optimizing for long-term hold and cash flow generation. So if those things are important to us, we think specialized agencies give us the best chance of finding those types of qualities in an agency. And so if you think about what are the advantages of specialization, especially in a client relationship, well, one, like you could argue that's going to lead to longer term relationships with a very kind of sticky group of clients. And so exactly who your ICP is, how you're kind of providing value to them, and then you if you're doing it right, like there should be less competition for that client to kind of switch into some other provider. And so there's a degree of retention and longevity there, and then because you're providing some kind of specialized expertise that's different than somebody doing it at a much lighter level, you should be able to command higher fees, and therefore profitability should be more important. So those things should also positively impact valuations, because if we're looking at agencies on EBITDA, right, their margins are going to be super important, and so specialization should flow through to allow for higher margins on their profits.
Great. We've covered a lot about specialization. And to wrap things up, if our listeners, want to learn a little bit more about specialization, yeah, any resources or books that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I mean, I have to kind of mention, the OG on the positioning side that we've kind of follow for many years now, probably 10 plus years. David C. Baker, his book, The Business of Expertise, has always been a good one for kind of thinking about agency, kind of expertise, positioning, specialization, whatever you want to call it. And that's been pretty, like I still refer to it every now and then, just, love some of the concepts that he talks about in there. I think Corey Quinn has a really, helpful book, especially on verticalizing as an agency called Anyone, Not Everyone. And then, there's another classic that I love, Positioning for Professionals by Tim Williams, also super helpful. So yeah, those are all, and these three folks are really great follows on LinkedIn too, because they're always kind of talking about positioning and, the benefits of it. So yeah, I'd say positioning, specialization, we've used it interchangeably, but I think it's worth a path going down for an agency, especially if you haven't gotten to that like big scale, of a generalist agency that could be super successful. I think specialization is an alternative path.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Peter, for sharing all the background about specialization. That's it for today, and we'll see you next time.
All right. See ya. Bye.